Welcome. This is a tutorial for The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask Remains Escape. This is a great trick, and essentially what this allows us to do is, after collecting a remains, like Gaiog's remains, we are able to gain movement, and from there, we can Void, or Deathwarp, or Voidwarp. Those are our main options, and doing this allows us to skip a Giants cutscene. Normally, back before this year, I guess you could say, what we would normally do is do a Song of Time Giants cutscene skip. That's what we called it. And the unfortunate issue of that is that, one, you had to sort ahead of time, and two, you had to reset the console, and therefore you would have to restart the entire cycle over again. The caveat with this, however, is that hookshot is required. So, while hookshot needs to be out, and that's because of something, hookshot has its own actor that's associated with it that other items do not have, not even bow. That's a little bit of the technical side. This is going to be more of an execution, and maybe a little bit of credit if I remember it. For example, Majora112, if I recall his username, he no longer exists, his account is deleted. He's doing well as far as I know, but he left the community for work-related reasons. He found this on emulator, and now we have it. So, cool, credit to him. And as far as what it looks like, it's a little something like this. KZ Jank, I will explain that soon enough. That's not what it looks like on vanilla. There we go. Looks something like this. You can do this with either Inverted Song of Time or Song of Double Time. They both use a separate cutscene camera, and that same camera, I think, it may be used for collecting items or something of that nature. If you want to know more about the technicalities of this trick, and there's something that I don't explain or don't explain very well, feel free to join the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask speedrunning Discord. I will try to remember to put an invite link, in the description of the video. This is what it looks like. And I crashed, and that was because I ended the text boxes too early. So, beware. Don't let that happen to you. Sorry for starting this off with a crash, more or less. Let's get right back into it. As far as the structure of this video, I'm going to go into some caveats with save states on KZ. Going to explain that right now. Then I'm going to go into a little bit of maybe what would be considered prior background knowledge that you would want to have to this video. Of course, you can skip these two if you want, and then go straight to the meat of the video, which would be the actual tutorial for the tricks themselves, their main escape related tricks. That'll be later on. I will try to remember to put timestamps in the description of the video, make chapters, etc, etc. But anyways, without further ado, let's get back to Gaiog. There we go. And I forgot. So, regarding the KZ save state jank. KZ is our practice ROM, if you're not familiar, and we utilize this heavily. If we don't utilize this, we will often utilize ZC, which is Zelda code, which runs on Gecko codes, which is great by itself. But this has a few more tricks up its sleeve. If you want to learn more, feel free to join the server, ask around there. So, if you were to load a save state on KZ with a blue portal, specifically from any map other than this specific map, and that is specifically warping to there, not just loading a save state in this map, loading another save state to the same map. I don't think that'll work, at least not with the same save state. Then what will happen is, not from before, you won't pick up the item during the cutscene you get from Inverted Song of Time or Song of Double Time. Instead, you will get an auto walk. This is not consistent, however. There are ways to avoid it, and this game decided that it's going to be nice for whatever reason. but I want to give an example still. You get this dumb little auto walk, and it's very sporadic and annoying. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, and we don't necessarily know completely why, aside to say it has maybe probably something to do with priority of the game's methods and something about the animations, something to that effect. Feel free to join the server and ask more details there in general questions or whatever. So to avoid this auto walk that completely defeats the trick, all you gotta do is warp to the boss room and then load the save state, and for whatever reason that fixes everything. One other thing I want to mention with KZ, if you were to load a save state during this cutscene, for whatever reason, this one here, or with inverted Song of Time, you get this annoying camera effect that won't go away even if you load a save state. All you gotta do is play the same song. Maybe the other song will work. I didn't test it. Hit yes. And then you can skip to the cutscene or whatever, and then the camera will be normal again. Alright, time for the background information of basic speedrunning stuff, basic tricks. Starting out with, so some of these tricks are you're on a tight bomb timer or tight enough that you may want to learn this one. This is called quick equip. This works for a lot of items, and essentially what it is a quick equip. For hookshot and bow in particular, they are first person items. Pulling them will cause you to do something along these lines. And then you can use this for other items still, but it is relevant to hookshot and bow if you're trying to equip them early for whatever reason, or equip them for something else. For example, weird shot when it comes to either of those first person items. How you can equip is essentially target, hit the, this is a frame advance with KZ if you're not familiar. Target, hit the item you want, and then hit shield right after. You have 4 frames to hit shield if I recall, because it takes a fair bit of time before Link actually pulls the item out, and then you can interrupt it during any of those 4 frames with shield. So again, it's very simple. Target, hit the button that you want, the C item button, and then hit shield right after. Right, simple enough. You can practice that on your own. Next up I want to go over is a little bit about text. So there are 3 buttons that progress text in this game. Those buttons are A, B, and C up. C up is the less commonly known one. A button will progress a text box by a single frame, or it will finish a text box that you're allowed to finish ahead of time. B, on the other hand, will, or I should start out with C up before B. C up acts like A as far as I know, and then C up, as long as text is scrolling on the screen, not necessarily when the text box is coming up like I just showed, didn't get skips through. Also, not when the text box is fully finished, it will only finish it only when the text box is actually scrolling on the text. The text is scrolling on a text box. If you press B, it will skip through and go to the end of the text. Now, if you mash B, it's a little hard to see on here, but it actually stutters the text. You don't want that necessarily. What you can do is tap B and then mash A, and then you don't get a stutter because A does not stutter the text box for whatever reason. That is going to be a little relevant for Inverted Song of Time Fast Deathwarp. Fast Deathwarp being a death warp, just a death that skips the death jingle. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-bum, bum, that one. So anyways, we're going to go back to Kyorg. And over here, we're going to go over the various methods of how to do this part here. So obviously, first off, you can walk in. That is recommended. That seems to be the fastest, and it seems like you have 3 frames from what I tested. I don't know if that was just that case. Maybe I'm going to say at least 2 frames It's very lenient. You just walk in, and by the time you're in the center, I thought I warped the, no, I didn't warp the guy first. By the time you're in the center of the circle, just pull Ocarina or right before it, and as long as Link picks up the Ocarina, picks up the remains right after, that means you got it. Good job. If you don't do the rest of the trick, obviously. So, a quick and easy way to do this is, of course, doing it over and over again, because it's very easy to practice. Just making sure you get it, and in doing so and making sure you get it, what I personally look for is very simple, very easy. Look at Link's feet, and as long as both of Link's feet are completely encapsulated by the circle that's on the ground of the blue portal, very visible to see from a bird's eye view, you can see it kind of here. It's not an actual circle, it's a multi-sided shape, whatever you want to call it. As long as both of his feet are in there, it'll work. But, oh no, that won't, that would work. And I'm trying to get something that, okay, so this is on the cusp. That worked. Okay, I'll cheat. So you're able to be on the edge, of course, and still pull Ocarina. And that looks a little better. If you're on the edge, obviously you need to walk in a little closer. Okay, that's all that is to say. I did forget to mention one quick thing regarding inverted Song of Time in this area. If you do inverted Song of Time in this area, then you're going to always get... this might be related to how after beating a boss, time is stopped. For whatever reason, they decided to stop time, and then things get a little wacky with that. You will always get this specific inverted Song of Time. This cutscene coming up here in a couple of seconds when I hit yes. Going from slow to fast, or to normal time speed, essentially is what it is. Doesn't matter if you play it over and over again. You will always get that one. Probably related to Jank regarding after beating a boss. And as you can see, it's slow to fast again, or slow to normal. I think that was everything I wanted to mention besides the background, regarding the background. Alright, back to the trick itself, to the setups. We just went over walking in. Next we're going to do side hop in, also pretty simple. Just press Ocarina sometime while you're in the air, close to when you land. So I would say after the apex of the side hop. That seems to work. You cannot have landed and then pull Ocarina. The game does not allow you to do that. And then third, something I don't necessarily recommend, but maybe the easiest in a derpy kind of way. If you really wanted to, you could do something along the lines of this. Just make sure to pull a hookshot. You could do an Ocarina dive onto it. That missed, but I don't care about that method too much. That's just to say that it works. Okay, those are our setups to get in. Very simple. Again, I would just recommend walking in. Very easy to get used to it. Now for our methods. We're going to go back to inverted Song of Time, like when I crashed. And I'm going to walk in every time. It's going to be the same thing if you don't. Just make sure that you have hookshot equipped. And just know that if you do a bomb for a Deathwarp method, you have to pull a hookshot back out. Okay, now, regarding the inverted Song of Time method, as you know, you can crash. The crash happens if you end the text and the cutscene too early. There is a bit of a camera overlap, and that camera overlap crashes the game, if I recall. You can avoid, or if you're too slow, then the cutscene of the remains floating decides to play anyways. I should just make a save state here. So you want in the middle somewhere. You want to end the cutscene. I'm going to say here and here. Focus on the chimes. You want to focus for the second highest pitch chime. Remember, they're going to go increasing in pitch. And the final highest pitch chime, You don't want the highest chime though, or the last chime. You want like the second or third to last chime. I don't remember which one it is. Here, and then one of those two. I'm gonna do that again because that was sloppy of me. Here, here, I mean, and then here. Somewhere between that second here and third here. You have between those spots to end the cutscene and end the text box, and you will get the skip. However, caveat to that is if you're on emulator for whatever dumb reason, you only have 2 frames to do that. Otherwise, you will crash. That's just all there is to it. So I'm going to press B and then A on any of those frames. You have a million frames, I don't know how many frames, but enough to not have to worry about crashing or anything really when it comes down to it. Unless you're like me and you're bad. But anyways, upon doing that, you now have free reign. Now, quick difference between inverted Song of Time and Song of Double Time is that the Song of Double Time will give a quick banner on the top left of the screen that signifies that you are either on the next night or the next day. What in the world is that camera? Oh, it's doing that. Let's get back to this save state. Okay, please play the song. If you're 2 frames in a row playing notes, or if you play a note too quick before the B button appears, then the game decides that those notes don't count and you have to restart the song. Very annoying. But anyways, focus on the top left, or it's right in the middle of the screen, never mind. That banner, it said 48 hours left, is considered text, and that matters because with this trick, if you close a text box, or if you close Ocarina, if I recall, maybe 1 or 2 other things, then that will actually initiate the remains floating cutscene. And that's because that's what it's waiting for. It's waiting for a text box to close. It's just a weird way of how they implemented when they wanted to make sure the remains cutscene floated and that they floated on the right time. It's based off of when the player closes the text box. But that gives overlap. So that's why we had to avoid that for certain iterations, specifically with Song of Double Time. So, inverted Song of Double Time, this is a very long-winded explanation to say that you can fast Deathwarp with inverted Song of Double Time, but you cannot fast Deathwarp with the Song of Double Time. So here's what the fast Deathwarp with inverted Song of Double Time looks like. I need to be low HP for that, don't I? So waiting for the third fast flash. If you're not familiar with flashes, it's 1, 2, 3 slow, 1, 2, 3 fast. So 1, 2, 3 slow, 1, 2, 3. And then pulling Ocarina sometime around the third fast flash. Not too tight, just go somewhere around there and you should make it. Play inverted Song of Double Time, obviously. I'm going to make a new save state here. Here. What you're going to do is very intentional. I was too slow for something. Nope, I gotta get the fast text. That's unfortunate. Nope. It's a bit tight here to get the fast text. Ow! Come on, buddy. Alright, so I think I pressed C up too early and instead progressed text with the A and B button. That is bad. Credit for this goes to Zunar, by the way. However, that is because of the C up implementation of this. The difference between A, B, and C up for this trick is that A and B will skip that cutscene for inverted Song of Time or Song of Double Time. C up will not. It will only progress the text and not the cutscene. And that is what makes this trick beautiful. Gigopler was the one who initially made this trick, the fast inverted Song of Time remains escape. And he did this with a metronome, and it was very finicky, but it worked. I will try to remember to link the video in the description. Excuse me. Mine English version. Well, good tutorial. Shoutouts to GigaPlayer and Zunar. Ah, shucks. I meant to take off a lot of these watches. A lot of them aren't necessary. I will do that real quick. That should be a lot easier to look at. Much better. There we are. Not there we are. I still need to take away my HP. Alright, finally back to this. Slow still. Obviously, this kind of thing requires a fair bit of practice, and I was not practicing it. Ah, still no. Nope, I missed the text box. Missed it again. Wow, this looks bad. There we go. Finally, got the fast Deathwarp. That's what it looks like. So, a little slower. Obviously, you got the bomb behind me. It's around that third fast flash. It was a little after on the fourth fast flash by the time I pulled Ocarina, if I recall. Makes it a little easier. Just less, it gives you, it shortens the time between the last text box and the bomb, and then that gives you more to work with regarding closing the text boxes, etc. So, a little more slowed down. Obviously, I'm pressing A here, and then my inputs are B to get the fast text scrolling. Then I'm mashing C up. Mashing C up is fine because that won't stutter the text, as far as I know, and then it won't trigger the cutscene skip, which is important. Then you're pressing A and B to skip the cutscene. Now you have to do this all quickly enough so that you can skip the cutscene, because after a certain amount of time, you will not be able to skip that, that time cutscene. You have to do everything quick enough so that you can. So again. Not again. It looks like that, and if you're fast enough with everything, you get this fast Deathwarp. Caveat to this that my save state is bad for. This is not Savestate Jank, but this is just me being lazy. I warped directly from South Clock Town or wherever I was to the boss room, and that sets your spawn position to the boss room after the Deathwarp. Normally, however, you will go to the beginning of the dungeon. So normally you would just have to hookshot the tree on the turtle's back, and that's how you would leave Great Bay Temple. I, however, derped around when I made this save state, and that's just to say, ignore this. Imagine I'm at the beginning of the dungeon. Alright, so that was inverted Song of Time with fast Deathwarp with the C up method. Next we'll go over Song of Double Time. Although we don't want to die. That's right. So don't die yet. We don't want to die too quickly. We want to pull a bomb after. And the reason is because of that whole thing with closing a text box, or the banner for saying that the Song of Double Time worked. You're on the next day. That whole banner. You have 48 hours left. That's text. We don't want that yet. We want to avoid that. We're going to get into that soon and what that does, because it is very special. But we want a Deathwarp. And to do that, we have to wait a couple more seconds till that is gone. So, back to Song of Double Time. Remains escape. To do this, you just have to wait a second after the cutscene starts, and after a certain time, you can just mash A and B, or just A, or just B, or whatever your heart desires. So, we're waiting a couple seconds till about now, then we're mashing everything, and then we're here. Now, if you were to mash A and you mash like a madman, you would somehow still trigger the remains floating up and then triggering those cutscenes, related cutscenes. So you don't want to just mash A, you don't want to just mash B immediately either, because then you're just going to get the same thing. You want to wait half a second because you're trying to offset the frames a little bit, then mash everything, and then you should get this. Okay, very happy. And then from here, you can pull a bomb, and when you do that, you'll die, and you're not going to go to the beginning of the boss room, you're going to go to the beginning of the dungeon. Very good. Problem with that, obviously, it's not a fast death warp for speedruns. If you had the option to do inverted Song of Time, if Song of Double Time doesn't give you any benefit, you typically will want to do the inverted Song of Time fast death warp. Let's do this again. No bomb, my bad. This. Wait half a second. Mash A and B. Pull a bomb. Drop it, whatever. I think you can do that immediately or near immediately, and then you're fine. You won't trigger the cutscene. There you go. So, that leaves one last method, one last cool, neat trick that you can do with this, and that is called a Voidwarp. Getting a lot of inspiration from Ocarina of Time. I'm sorry, that's two things that you can do. We can also do some other thing. I'll get to that after this, because I just mentioned this. So, Voidwarp. Same as before, except you have a bomb placed ahead of time. You're going to play Song of Double Time. So, similar to Fast Death Warp Inverted Song of Time, but you're not going to do a normal Death Warp. Everything else is the same as Song of Double Time. Wait half a second or so until you see the clocks or something, then mash buttons. And you're going to get this fancy thing here. You're actually going to have movement on the Giants map. Giants cutscene map. Now there are a couple of caveats to this, and I do have to get a little technical for this. You will not normally be able to do this for Gyorg. You will also not normally be able to do this for Odolwa, because you start from the dungeon, and when you start the dungeon, your death cords, or your death spawn information, whatever you want to call that, is not room 0. And because of that, you're going to get a crash. That's a lot of jargon, a lot of technical stuff that I don't understand. Those are the basics of it. You need for the dungeon first room to be room 0. And that is the case for both Snowwood Temple and, Goat, and Inverted Stone Tower Temple, and that's Twin Mold. So I'm going to show them off real quick. I'm going to start with Twin Mold because he's less interesting. So, same as before. You don't have to wait. One moment. Gotta deal with the jank. Please let me escape here. There we go. There we go. That looked weird. You don't actually have to wait for the bomb to go at all. you just do this immediately. So on this save state, I made sure to do everything how you're normally supposed to do it. And you have to start at the beginning of the dungeon for another reason, because it actually affects your spawn locations on the Giants map, such that if you wanted to be on like vanilla, you have to have your normal starting location. Okay, so die while that cutscene is going on. Timing is just right for this. And here we are. Unfortunately, Twin Mold is largely useless to us because we spawn below the map. And you do this infinitely until you die. Very unfortunate. Actually, just keep going. You don't even lose HP, it looks like. You can't even die. And even if you were to lose HP, you would just keep falling and voiding infinitely. It's very tragic. Now for Goat's turn, I think you can probably guess why this is so cool. Alright, for the text box. That's a good visual cue. Because of room 0 and spawn location on Snow End Temple, from the beginning of the dungeon, you actually spawn quite nicely here in the center. And whatever color the background is dependent on whatever many times you've actually seen this cutscene, not necessarily how many remains you have. The game actually keeps a separate tracker according to Turkenheimer, and he knows his stuff. So once you're here, you can die if you really want to, and dying, if I recall, will send you right back to the start of the dungeon, I think. It's not very interesting. You could also Song of Soaring out of here. Sometimes, somehow I got this to crash, but generally I don't have any idea how I got it to crash, even though I tried to recreate it. It not crash, it was soft block. The Song of Soaring cutscene didn't play, that's what it was. But with this, you're able to, in 100% context, this would only be useful with Twin Mold and Sundar Temple, more broadly speaking, the area surrounding them, Ikana, and that's because I don't remember the reason. It's a little late. You can ask in the 100 questions, 100% questions channel of the server if you really care. We're gonna move on. Unfortunately, I will say, you can only do this with Goat and Snow Temple, so it's kind of useless completely to us. I wanted to backtrack to Song of Double Time in particular, and specifically for Song of Double Time anyway. Now, I left my X, Y, and Z watches. Those are my location. That's my current location up there, and as my watches in the corner. That's what you can see on screen right now. And that is to show this off. When you play Song of Double Time and you go to the cutscene, this does not happen for Inverted Song of Time, I will mention. Watch those coordinates. You, for whatever reason, go to 0, 0, 0. Why on earth they would do this for Song of Double Time and not Inverted Song of Time, I have no idea. But, you've already seen this a million times if you're paying attention to the values, but I'll show it anyways, just to show it in this context. Doesn't happen for this cutscene. No idea why. What does that mean for Maid's Escape? Well, nah, close enough. No, not close enough. I don't want this one. Please get out of here. Twin Mold will do. In the case of Twin Mold, this is actually very interesting because what this allows us to do, because the trigger is at 0, 0, 0, see, as I get closer to it, I get closer to 0, 0, 0. It's close enough in Y that 60 doesn't matter. It's not very high. You can actually see it's not that high. But For this, and if you fight Odolwa such that his remains spawn on a flower, and you have to do a manip for that, sort of, I guess. Do I have hookshot? No, I don't. You can do the same thing here, from anywhere. And I do mean from anywhere. I think this is far enough to get the point across. And voila. I have 21 remains. However, there is a very explicit caveat to that, and you might have noticed if you saw me, despite me trying to scroll the screen quickly. You get fishing rod over Ocarina inventory. Not over your C button if you have it equipped necessarily, but you get this fancy Ocarina, credit to Gigo for finding us. And it doesn't matter if you're close, nearby, far away, whatever, as far as I know anyways, you will get the fishing rod. Oh, why can't I use it? There we go. The fishing rod is special because it can soft block you, and that is very exciting and awesome, and it sucks. That's all it can do. At least as far as we know. So I don't know, maybe if there's a map with that you can use fishing rod on, then you can use it, but that isn't the case here. Anyways, so if you ever do this, if you ever find yourself needing to do this, you're going to lose Ocarina. But if you need to go into a first cycle state, at least as far as we're not, Ocarina is in the Ocarina slot on the inventory menu, this is a method to do that. And so that could be useful for a couple of reasons. For example, if you are in what we call first cycle state, based off of whether or not the Ocarina is in its slot, or some other item other than the Ocarina is in its slot, or you simply don't have Ocarina at all, then after a while, you're going to get tattle text, and tattle text can be used for action swap. If you want to learn more about that, you can ask in the server. We have several examples, including Deathless Ben percent, or no, Ben percent, which is related to the creepypasta. Anyways, in addition to that, collect any item like a heart container. Oh wait, I thought this. Does this not trigger the blue warp? Yeah, it triggers the warp. It just doesn't trigger the remains floating cutscene, and then you can go through this as normal. Very exciting stuff. Again, this works for Odolwa, as long as the remains spawn on the flower, which requires you to kill Odolwa somewhere over here, which is where the blue warp normally spawns otherwise. As far as I know anyways. Is there anything else that I want to go over before I go over the other things? I believe those are all of the special tricks that you can do with this. The remaining information that I want to go over personally are your options for voiding or dying if you don't have bombs. So obviously if you have bombs, movement, and you can just kill yourself with a bomb or a chew or whatever it is that you have. Your other options include, if you're on the Odolwa map actually, if you're doing something that requires you, a category that requires you to not have bombs in your inventory, bombless, then you can just use these bombs and they can kill you. Very exciting. I think you can figure out what that looks like. Oh, it already happened. Cool. Goat or Snowhead Temple, you have no extra options. You don't have any options, that's all. Twin Mold, you actually have an interesting option for dying. You could also just Goron roll, that's very exciting. Goron Void, I mean. Goron Void, you just fall over here, and then this actually is like Goron Voiding. You do spawn up here, and then what you can do is song out because Gyerg is alive again, because you died or you voided, and you can go back to the beginning of the temple. Great, fantastic. Back to the dying method here. You may have noticed based off of my save state nomenclature, I have 2/16 HP. If you're not familiar with the HP in this game, sorry for all the beeps, all of your hearts are broken into 16 parts, not 4. Visually you can see 4 parts, but you actually have 16 parts per heart. So if you specifically have 2/16 or 3/16 HP, then you can do this. And then while we're waiting, I will explain a little more. Let's go down here, sink, take the mask off, and by the time you reach the before you reach the surface, you will die. Awesome. That happens with 2/16 and 3/16 HP left. It does not happen if you have 4/16 or a quarter of a heart left, unfortunately, which requires us to take damage from either fire, ice, or the moths in Woodfall Temple, the torch moths. I'm not sure if they are anywhere else. I don't think anything else allows you to get anything other than an increment of a quarter of a heart damage, unfortunately. So you need to route this ahead of time if you're going to do this. Unfortunately, 1/16 HP will not work, and that is because of a glitch known as 1/16 hearts HP or something, I don't know really. It's more known in Ocarina of Time because they actually have heat timers. We just have drown timers in Majora's Mask. That's just to say it's a special thing that prevents the timer from ever appearing and you cannot die from it. So, just want to mention that real quick. That is excess information that is very particular. But then so is this method. Our remaining methods are obviously using bombs anywhere to die, and finally, as I'm sure you can imagine, on the twin mold map, if you go out far enough, you're going to find some place to void. And if I recall, this brings you back to the entrance right before the warp to the boss, which is right here. Oh, nope, I guess it takes you to the dungeon entrance. And even if it didn't, if you had low enough HP, it would kill you anyways, and then it would bring you back to the beginning of the dungeon, regardless. So there you go. On top of that, if you really wanted to get fancy, you could super slide or Hess back, whatever you wanted to do. I can't super slide well, but obviously you can Hess to the back. Great. Just like that, just hold shield the whole way back, or again, if you wanted to get fancy again, you could backwalk as a giant to the void, any direction. I don't know what the closest direction would be. It depends on where you are. Just go away from the platform whenever you kill the final twin mold. Or actually, you would start on the platform, never mind. And if you wanted to get extra fancy, if you had the nads to do it, I guess. I'm not really sure it would matter. You could do a equip swap. Do this. Then do this. Oh, I need to unequip this, don't I? I need to get this over there. I'm gonna cheat. I don't remember how to do this exactly. You can ask in the server how to do this exactly. Okay, so I want to put this back over. Now it's Postman's hat. Oh, okay, sure, whatever. And then you can backwalk with relatively normal speed as giants, and then you can do it. It might not really be worth it, but it is an option. And with that, that is, I want to say, everything that we know regarding Remains Escape. Hopefully this video helps you in some way, shape, or form. I will try to make sure I add those timestamps. This is a long video and a lot to digest. So, without further ado, good luck, have fun.